Welcome back to the deep dive. This time, we're tackling something you specifically requested,
Yeah.
a deep dive into critical thinking,
Cool.
using the YouTube video, Critical Thinking Mastery, Transform Your Mindset for Ultimate Personal Growth, as our guide.
Nice.
I have to say, even just skimming through it, this video is packed with stuff
I know, right?
that goes way beyond the usual, like, think clearly advice.
It really does. And I think that's why you, the listener, chose it for us.
Yeah.
You're clearly interested in critical thinking, not just as a mental skill,
Right.
but as something tied to personal development, maybe even transformation.
Totally. So let's not waste time on the super basics.
Okay.
I think our listener already gets that critical thinking isn't just about winning arguments.
Yeah, for sure.
This video jumps right into a fascinating metaphor: the mind as unexplored territory.
Interesting.
What do you make of that?
It's brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
Because before we can even analyze the world critically, we have to understand the terrain of our own thinking.
Yeah.
The video argues that self-awareness is the foundation of everything else.
Okay, I'm with you so far. But self-awareness is such a buzzword these days.
I know.
How does the video make it practical?
It gives specific techniques, which I appreciated.
Oh, nice.
Mindfulness, for example, isn't just some woo-woo concept here.
Right.
It's presented as a tool to notice your thought patterns without judgment.
Okay.
Like, oh, there's that anxiety spiral again.
Yeah.
Without beating yourself up about it.
So kind of like becoming an observer of your own mind.
Yeah.
Almost like a scientist gathering data.
Exactly. And the video then suggests journaling to take that observation a step further.
Okay.
Not just noticing thoughts, but capturing them.
I see.
You start to see patterns in your decision-making, emotional reactions, even your core beliefs that you might not have been conscious of before.
That's so cool. But even when we're super self-aware,
Yeah.
the video points out we've all got cognitive biases.
Well, for sure.
I feel like this is where things can go from interesting to actually impacting our lives.
Absolutely. The video goes beyond simply lifting biases, though.
Okay.
It gives examples that are instantly relatable.
Good.
Like confirmation bias, we've all been there, right?
Uh-huh.
Scrolling past news articles that disagree with our political stance, even if they're well-researched.
Oh, 100%. Or how about the availability heuristic?
Oh, yeah.
After a plane crash makes headlines, suddenly everyone's terrified of flying.
Right.
Even though statistically it's safer than driving.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
And see, that's where this deep dive gets really practical.
Yeah.
The video doesn't just say, hey, you're biased. It starts to equip us with the tools to actually do something about it.
Okay, so we're primed for change. What's next on this critical thinking journey, according to the video?
It moves into the fundamentals,
Okay.
but again, in a way that assumes the listener is smart.
Good.
Logical reasoning, for instance, isn't presented as some stuffy academic thing.
Right.
It's more like becoming a detective, where you need evidence to reach a conclusion, not just gut feelings.
I like that. So instead of saying, I just know this is true, you're asking what facts actually support this.
Right. And the video breaks down argument structure in a really helpful way.
Oh, good.
Claims, premises, conclusions.
Yeah.
It reminds me of those logic puzzles we used to do as kids, but applied to real life.
But it's not just about logic, right? The video also stresses evidence-based thinking, which feels especially relevant today.
Hugely relevant, with so much information flying around.
I know, right?
It's easy to get caught up in opinions and anecdotes. The video pushes us to go beyond that,
Okay.
to actively seek out reliable sources. And this is key, to be willing to change our minds when presented with new evidence.
That can be tough, though, admitting you were wrong.
Yeah,
The video must touch on that, right?
it does.
Especially since it ties critical thinking to personal growth.
It absolutely does.
Okay.
It talks about cultivating certain attitudes that make critical thinking possible.
Oh, interesting.
Curiosity, open-mindedness, and intellectual humility. Not just the skills, but the willingness to use them even when it's challenging.
That's so important. It's like critical thinking isn't just about being right.
Right.
It's about being willing to learn and grow, even if it means admitting you were mistaken.
Exactly. And this leads beautifully into the video's deeper dive into overcoming those cognitive biases we talked about earlier.
Okay, let's get specific here. What are some of the biases it calls out? And more importantly, how do we combat them? Give us those actionable strategies.
Well, we've already mentioned confirmation bias.
Right.
One powerful antidote the video suggests is actively seeking out opposing viewpoints.
Oh.
It's uncomfortable, yes,
Yeah.
but it's like strength training for your mind.
I like that.
You break out of those echo chambers and start to see the nuances of an issue.
That's so true. It's easy to surround yourself with people who agree with you,
Right,
but it doesn't really challenge your thinking.
right. And then there's the anchoring effect.
Oh, okay.
Ever notice how the first price you see for something, like when buying a car, tends to stick in your mind,
Oh, yeah.
even if it's totally inflated?
Suddenly, every other price is judged against that first one, even if it was ridiculous.
Exactly. So the video encourages us to be aware of this tendency
Okay.
and to actively seek out multiple sources of information before forming an opinion.
So don't just anchor yourself to the first thing you hear. Do your research.
And then, of course, there's the availability heuristic, which we touched on with the plane crash example.
Right, where vivid or recent events skew our perception of risk.
Exactly. To combat this, the video encourages us to seek out statistical data and to consider the bigger picture, not just the most easily recalled examples.
So don't let those dramatic headlines hijack your rational thinking. Look at the facts.
And all of these strategies, seeking out opposing viewpoints, considering multiple sources of information, grounding your thinking in data, they all tie back to that intellectual humility we were talking about.
That willingness to admit you might be wrong and to be open to changing your mind.
Exactly. And that's what makes critical thinking so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not about clinging to your beliefs. It's about constantly challenging them, refining them, and evolving your thinking.
That's such a great point. It's like critical thinking is a journey, not a destination.
Yes.
You're always learning, always growing, always refining your understanding of the world.
Exactly. And this journey, as the video beautifully illustrates, equips us to tackle real-world problems in a more effective way.
Which is a perfect segue to the next part of the video. I'm eager to hear what it has to say about problem solving.
Well, me too.
Because, let's be honest, life throws us plenty of curveballs.
It does. And the video tackles this head-on, offering a structured approach that anyone can use,
Good.
regardless of the specific problem they're facing.
Okay, I'm ready to get equipped. Walk us through it. What's the first step in this critical thinking approach to problem solving?
The first step, and this one is often overlooked, is problem decomposition.
Problem decomposition. Sounds fancy. What does that mean exactly?
It simply means breaking down big, overwhelming problems into smaller, more manageable chunks. Just like we talked about understanding the terrain of our own minds.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to zoom in and focus on the individual threads before we can untangle the whole knot.
That's such a great analogy. I can see how that would make a complex problem feel less daunting.
Yeah.
Kind of like tackling a big project one step at a time.
Exactly. And once you've broken down the problem,
Okay.
the next step naturally is information gathering.
Okay.
Don't rush to solutions. The video really emphasizes this.
So it's like being a detective again. Gather the evidence before you try to crack the case.
Precisely. Get all the facts, consider multiple perspectives, and try to identify the root causes of the problem.
Okay.
Don't just treat the symptoms.
That makes sense. It's about digging deeper to understand the underlying issues. So once we've gathered all this information, what's next?
Well, then comes the fun part, brainstorming.
Ah, yes. Let the creative juices flow. What kind of brainstorming tips does the video offer?
It encourages us to generate as many potential solutions as possible, even those that seem a bit out there at first.
Oh, fun.
Sometimes the most innovative solutions come from unexpected places.
I love that. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. But once you've got this whirlwind of ideas, how do you choose the best one?
That's where critical thinking comes back in.
Okay.
It's time to put on your analytical hat and evaluate those solutions carefully.
Oh.
Consider the pros and cons of each option.
Yeah.
What are the potential outcomes, both short-term and long-term? What are the risks? What are the resources required?
So it's about being objective and weighing the options carefully. Don't just go with your gut feeling or the first idea that pops into your head.
Exactly. And this evaluation stage often involves seeking out additional information or expertise. You might need to do some research, consult with others, or run some experiments to test your ideas.
That makes sense. Problem solving isn't always a solo mission. Sometimes you need to collaborate with others or seek out expert advice.
Absolutely. And the video emphasizes that this collaborative aspect is particularly important when working in a team. Make sure everyone has a chance to share their ideas and perspectives.
That's a great point. Diversity of thought can lead to more innovative and effective solutions.
And then once you've selected the solution you think is best,
Yeah.
it's time to create a plan for implementation.
Okay.
Break down the solution into actionable steps, assign responsibilities if you're working with a team, and set clear timelines.
So it's not enough to have a brilliant idea. You need to know how to put it into action.
And one final point the video makes about problem solving that I found really intriguing is the power of reframing.
Reframing. Tell me more about that.
It's about looking at the problem from different angles. Sometimes the way we initially frame a problem limits our ability to see potential solutions.
So it's about challenging your assumptions and looking at the problem with fresh eyes.
Exactly. And this can involve asking yourself questions like,
Okay.
what if I approach this from a completely different perspective? What if I turn the problem upside down? What if I ask someone who knows nothing about this situation for their input?
That's so interesting. Sometimes you just need to shift your perspective to unlock those creative solutions. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here with problem solving.
We have.
But I have a feeling our critical thinking journey isn't over yet.
I agree.
There's still so much more to explore in this video. We've talked about how to approach problems.
Yeah.
What about how to analyze the information and arguments that bombard us every day?
Oh, I know.
You're reading my mind. That's exactly what I was thinking. We live in a world of information overload, and being able to critically analyze that information is crucial.
Absolutely. And that's where the video's next section comes in.
Okay.
It provides a set of tools and strategies to help us dissect arguments, evaluate evidence,
Oh, good.
and identify those sneaky logical fallacies that can trip us up.
Okay, I'm ready to sharpen my critical thinking sword. Let's dive into the world of information analysis. What's the first lesson the video offers?
It starts by reminding us that every argument, no matter how complex, can be broken down into those three basic elements we touched on earlier:
Okay.
claims, premises, and conclusions.
Okay, let's do a quick recap. Claims are...
Claims are the statements being put forward.
Okay.
Think of them as the main points someone is trying to get across.
Right.
Like, this policy will boost the economy, or that candidate is the best choice for this position.
Okay, and premises are...
Premises are the evidence or reasons given to support those claims.
Okay,
To the because part of the argument.
got it.
So someone might say, this policy will boost the economy because it will create jobs.
Right.
Or that candidate is the best choice because they have the most experience.
And the conclusion is?
The conclusion is what the argument is ultimately trying to convince you of. It's the therefore statement.
Okay.
So it might be, therefore we should support this policy,
Yeah.
or therefore you should vote for this candidate.
Okay, that makes sense. So by breaking down an argument into these elements,
Right.
we can start to analyze it more effectively.
Exactly. And the next step is to evaluate the evidence.
Okay.
Don't just take those premises at face value. Ask yourself, is this evidence relevant to the claim? Is it reliable? Does it come from a credible source?
So it's like being a fact checker. We need to scrutinize the evidence to see if it actually supports the claims being made.
Right. And be wary of things like anecdotal evidence. Just because your friend's cousin had a great experience with something
Right.
doesn't mean it's universally true or scientifically valid.
That's such an important point. We tend to be swayed by personal stories,
I know.
but they're not always reliable evidence.
Exactly. And then the video delves into those logical fallacies we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
These are errors in reasoning
Right.
that can make an argument seem convincing even if it's flawed.
Yes, fallacies. Those sneaky little tricks that can trip us up if we're not careful.
I know.
Give us some examples of the fallacies the video highlights.
Well, one we've already touched on is the slippery slope fallacy. That's where someone argues that one event will inevitably lead to a chain of negative consequences, even though there's no evidence to support that claim.
Like the classic, if we legalize marijuana, everyone will become heroin addicts.
Exactly. It's a scare tactic
Yeah.
that often relies on emotional appeals rather than logic or evidence.
Okay, so we need to be on the lookout for those slippery slopes. What other fallacies should we be aware of?
The video also highlights the ad hominem attack,
Okay.
which is a personal attack on the person making the argument
Right.
instead of addressing the argument itself.
So instead of debating the merits of an idea,
Yeah,
they resort to name-calling or insults?
exactly. It's a way of trying to discredit the person making the argument, even if the argument itself is valid.
Okay, so watch out for those ad hominem attacks. They're often a sign that someone doesn't have a strong argument to stand on. Are there any other fallacies we should be aware of?
The video also mentions the false dichotomy fallacy.
What's that one?
It's where someone presents only two options when there might be other possibilities.
Okay.
It's a way of oversimplifying a complex issue and forcing people to choose between two extremes.
Like saying, you're either with us or against us.
Exactly.
There might be other perspectives or options that aren't being considered.
Exactly. It's a way of shutting down critical thinking and nuanced discussion.
Okay, so watch out for those false dichotomies. Don't let anyone box you into a limited set of options.
And another fallacy to be aware of is confusing correlation with causation.
Oh, right.
Just because two things happen together doesn't mean one caused the other.
Right. Classic example. Ice cream sales and crime rates both go up in the summer.
Right.
That doesn't mean ice cream causes crime.
Exactly. There might be a third factor, like hot weather, that's influencing both.
Okay, so we need to be careful not to jump to conclusions based on correlations. There might be other factors at play that we're not considering. What other insights does the video offer about analyzing information and arguments?
Well, it emphasizes the importance of paying attention to what's not said in an argument.
Oh, interesting.
Sometimes the hidden assumptions and unstated premises can be just as revealing as the explicit claims.
So it's about reading between the lines and thinking critically about the underlying assumptions. Can you give us an example?
Sure, imagine someone arguing that we should lower taxes to stimulate the economy.
Okay.
That argument might sound convincing on the surface,
Yeah,
but it rests on the unstated assumption
right.
that lower taxes always lead to economic growth, which isn't necessarily true.
There might be other factors at play, or the
Maybe.
tax cuts might not be structured in a way that actually benefits the economy.
Exactly. So when you're analyzing an argument, ask yourself, what are the unspoken assumptions here? What's being left unsaid? Are those assumptions valid?
That's such a great point. It's like being a detective again, looking for those subtle clues and hidden meanings. So we need to be critical thinkers, not just about the words being said,
Yeah.
but about the silences and the unspoken assumptions.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And the video encourages us to apply these analytical skills to all kinds of information we encounter in our daily lives.
Oh, for sure.
Don't just reserve your critical thinking for academic debates or political arguments.
Right.
Use it to evaluate advertisements,
Mhm.
news articles, social media posts,
Yeah.
even conversations with friends and family.
That's so important. We're bombarded with information from all sides these days. Being able to critically analyze that information is essential for making informed decisions and navigating the world effectively.
Absolutely. And the more you practice these skills, the better you'll become at spotting biases,
Yeah.
identifying fallacies, and evaluating evidence.
Yeah.
It's like building a mental toolkit for navigating the information landscape.
That's such a great analogy. We're equipping ourselves with the tools we need to be savvy consumers of information, to think for ourselves, and to make decisions based on logic and evidence.
Yeah.
Not just emotion or gut feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this ability to think critically and independently is more important than ever in today's world.
I couldn't agree more. But I have a feeling our critical thinking journey isn't over yet.
I agree.
The video dives into another crucial aspect of this skill, engaging with different perspectives,
It does.
which can be challenging, especially in today's polarized world,
I know, right?
where it seems like everyone's entrenched in their own beliefs.
It can be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
When we open ourselves up to different perspectives,
Yeah.
we challenge our own assumptions,
Right.
broaden our understanding, and
Yeah.
often come up with more innovative solutions to problems.
So it's not about everyone agreeing with each other. It's about embracing the richness and complexity that comes from diverse viewpoints.
Exactly. And the video offers some practical strategies for navigating those differences in a respectful and constructive way.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear those strategies.
One of the most important strategies, and we've touched on this before, is active listening.
Okay.
It's about truly hearing what the other person is saying,
Yeah.
both verbally and nonverbally,
Yeah.
and trying to understand their perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
So it's about putting aside your own biases and judgments
Yeah,
and really trying to see the world through their eyes.
exactly. And it involves asking clarifying questions to ensure you understand their viewpoint.
Right.
It's not about waiting for your turn to speak or planning your rebuttal. It's about genuine curiosity and a desire to learn from the other person.
That's such a great point. It's easy to get caught up in our own thoughts and opinions.
I know.
But active listening requires us to step outside of ourselves
Yeah.
and really focus on the other person.
And the video emphasizes that this can be especially challenging when you're talking to someone who holds a viewpoint
Oh, yeah.
that you find offensive or upsetting.
That's so true. It's easy to get defensive or to shut down completely when
Yeah.
someone says something that challenges your deeply held beliefs.
But the video encourages us to resist those impulses
Okay.
and to try to approach the conversation with curiosity and empathy.
Empathy. How does that relate to critical thinking?
Well, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person.
Okay.
And when we can empathize with someone, even if we disagree with them, it becomes easier to have a constructive dialogue.
Yeah.
We start to see them not as an adversary, but as a human being with their own unique experiences and perspectives.
So it's about finding common ground and recognizing our shared humanity, even amidst differences of opinion.
Exactly. And the video introduces a fascinating technique for both building empathy and strengthening your own critical thinking.
Okay.
Steel manning.
Steel manning, what's that?
It's the opposite of straw manning,
Right.
where you attack a weak or exaggerated version of someone's argument.
Okay.
In steel manning, you try to articulate the strongest possible version of their argument, even if you ultimately disagree with it.
So it's about giving the other person the benefit of the doubt and trying to understand their argument on its own terms.
Exactly. And this forces you to engage with the most robust version of their argument, which can help you identify any weaknesses in your own position.
That's brilliant. I can see how steel manning would be a powerful tool for both building bridges and sharpening your own critical thinking skills.
Oh.
Okay, so we've talked about active listening, empathy, and steel manning. What other gems of wisdom does the video offer for engaging with different perspectives?
Well, one simple but effective strategy is to simply ask questions.
Ask questions, but doesn't that make you seem less knowledgeable or confident?
Not at all. In fact, asking questions shows that you're genuinely interested in the other person's perspective
Yeah,
and that you're willing to learn from them.
that makes sense. It shifts the dynamic of the conversation from a debate to a dialogue,
Right.
from a battle of egos to a shared exploration of ideas.
Right.
What kind of questions should we be asking?
Well, you can ask open-ended questions
Okay.
to encourage the other person to elaborate on their views.
Uh-huh.
You can ask clarifying questions
Right.
to make sure you understand their point.
Yeah.
You can even ask challenging questions to probe their assumptions and test the strength of their argument.
So questions can be a powerful tool for both understanding and challenging different perspectives.
Exactly. And the key is to ask those questions in a respectful and non-confrontational way.
Right.
Your goal should be to learn and to foster dialogue, not to win an argument or to make the other person feel stupid.
That's such an important reminder. It's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment
I know.
and to forget that the goal is to have a productive conversation,
Yes.
not to score points or to prove our intellectual superiority.
And sometimes those conversations with people who hold different viewpoints can lead to a shift in our own thinking.
Yeah.
We might realize that we hadn't considered a certain angle
Uh-huh.
or that there's more to the issue than we initially thought.
And that's okay. In fact, it's a sign of growth and intellectual humility.
Exactly. Critical thinking isn't about clinging to our beliefs.
Right.
It's about being open to new information and different perspectives. It's about recognizing that we don't have all the answers and that there's always more to learn.
That's such a powerful message. It's about embracing the journey of learning and growth, even if it takes us in unexpected directions.
And remember, this journey of engaging with different perspectives isn't just about those big, important conversations about politics or religion or social issues. It's also about those everyday interactions with your friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers.
That's a great point. It's about approaching every interaction as an opportunity to learn something new,
Yeah.
to expand our understanding of the world, and to connect with others on a deeper level.
Exactly. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation with someone who has a different viewpoint than you,
Okay.
take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Practice those active listening skills and try to see the world through their eyes.
You might be surprised at what you discover. You might learn something new. You might strengthen your own argument. You might even change your mind about something.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a sign of growth and intellectual humility.
Exactly. So embrace those moments of discomfort, those challenges to your existing beliefs, because that's where the real learning happens.
And that's where the magic of critical thinking truly unfolds.
This has been such an incredible conversation so far. I don't know about you, listener,
Yeah.
but I'm feeling so inspired to put all of these critical thinking strategies into action.
Me too. And I'm excited to see what happens when we apply these principles not just to information and arguments,
Yeah.
but also to the way we make decisions and build resilience in our lives.
Speaking of decisions, that's the next stop on our critical thinking journey. The video dives deep into effective decision-making strategies,
That's good.
especially those that lead to success.
It's a fascinating section, and it ties in beautifully with everything we've been discussing so far about self-awareness, overcoming biases, and engaging with different perspectives.
Okay, I'm ready to level up my decision-making game. Let's hear what the video has to say about it.
You know what's fascinating about the video's approach to decision-making?
Yeah.
is that it frames it as a skill
Okay.
to be honed,
Uh-huh.
not just some innate talent some people have and others don't.
Okay. I'm all in on that idea because I think a lot of us feel like we're either good or bad at decisions,
Yeah,
when maybe it's more about having a process.
I agree.
What does the video suggest?
It starts with something seemingly simple,
Okay.
yet so many people skip it,
Oh,
clearly defining the problem you're trying to solve.
right.
You'd be surprised how often we're trying to solve the wrong problem
Yeah.
or a symptom instead of the root cause.
Oh, that's so true. It's like that saying,
Yeah.
if you have an hour to chop down a tree, spend the first 45 minutes sharpening your axe.
Exactly.
Getting that initial clarity is crucial.
Exactly. And then, of course, comes gathering information, evaluating options,
Yeah.
steps we've discussed before.
Mm-hmm.
But here, the video emphasizes how crucial they are specifically for decisions that lead to success, not just any random choice.
So it's about being intentional, aiming for the best outcome, not just getting something decided. What I find tricky is that balance between logic and intuition.
Oh, yeah,
The video talks about that,
it
right?
does, and in a way that really resonated with me.
Okay.
Because sometimes we can get so caught up in spreadsheets and pros and cons lists
Uh-huh.
that we forget to tap into our intuition.
Totally. Like sometimes your gut is telling you something
Yes.
that the data isn't revealing yet.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the video reminds us that intuition isn't just some mystical thing.
Okay.
It's often based on years of experience.
Yeah, right.
Patterns our conscious mind might not even be picking up on.
So it's not about being irrational. It's about integrating that gut feeling into a logical process.
Yeah.
Does the video offer any advice on handling uncertainty?
It does.
Because that's a huge part of any big decision, right?
Huge.
Yeah.
It specifically recommends scenario planning,
Okay.
which for our listener
Yeah.
is like creating what-if stories in your mind
Yeah.
for how things could play out.
Yeah.
And then seeing how your decision would fare in each of those scenarios.
I love that. It's like a mental rehearsal for different possibilities. Does the video also warn about any traps to avoid during decision-making?
Oh, absolutely. It calls out analysis paralysis,
Right.
which we mentioned before.
Yeah.
That's where you get so stuck in researching and analyzing
Yeah.
that you never actually make a move.
Right.
Sometimes imperfect action is better than perfect inaction.
So true. And it's easy to fall into that trap when you're afraid of making the wrong decision. What other pitfalls does it mention?
It cautions against groupthink,
Okay.
where the desire for harmony or consensus leads to bad decisions.
Mhm.
Like everyone agrees just to keep the peace, even if deep down they have doubts.
Yes, I've seen that happen so many times.
I know.
It's like the pressure to conform silences those who might have valuable dissenting opinions.
Exactly. So the video recommends explicitly encouraging different viewpoints
Okay.
and even having someone designated as a devil's advocate
Oh,
to poke holes in the group's thinking.
that's a great idea. Having that dissenting voice can really help prevent bad decisions. So we've talked about making decisions for success,
Yeah,
but life isn't always about achieving specific goals, right? It's also about navigating the ups and downs, the challenges that come our way.
absolutely. And that's where the video's exploration of mental resilience comes in.
Okay.
It's like the bedrock that allows all these other critical thinking skills to function,
Yeah.
even when things get tough.
So it's not just about thinking smart.
Right,
It's about having that inner strength to cope when things go wrong.
right. And remember that powerful metaphor the video uses?
Yeah.
The oak tree standing tall amidst the storm.
Oh, yeah. The image is so vivid, bending but not breaking.
Exactly. Mental resilience is about weathering those storms without getting uprooted.
Oh.
And the video emphasizes that emotional intelligence plays a huge role in building this resilience.
We've talked about emotional intelligence before. That ability to recognize and manage your emotions. But how does it connect to resilience specifically?
Think about it. When you're emotionally intelligent,
Uh-huh.
you're better able to notice how you react to stress, to setbacks.
Yeah.
You don't just get swept away by those feelings.
Right.
You can observe them and choose how to respond.
So it's like creating that space between the stimulus and your reaction.
Exactly. And the video reminds us that mindfulness meditation is an incredibly powerful tool for developing this skill.
Okay.
It's like training your mind to be present with those difficult emotions without judgment,
Right.
which helps you regulate them instead of letting them control you.
It's like creating a pause button for your reactions.
Yeah.
Giving yourself time to choose a more skillful response. What else does the video suggest for building resilience?
It emphasizes the importance of a growth mindset, which we've mentioned before. This is huge EE for resilience because it means seeing challenges not as personal failures,
Right.
but as opportunities for learning and development.
That's such a powerful reframe. Instead of getting discouraged by setbacks, you see them as stepping stones on the path to growth.
Exactly. The video also reminds us that everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
It's part of being human.
Mm.
But with a growth mindset, you can ask,
Yeah.
what can I learn from this?
Right.
Instead of beating yourself up.
So true. And I love that the video highlights the importance of social connections for building resilience.
Rayo.
We're not meant to go through tough times alone, right?
Absolutely. And it's
Right.
not just about having people to vent to.
Okay.
It's about having a network of support
Yeah.
that can offer encouragement, different perspectives, even practical help when you need it.
Right.
Those connections are like anchors that help you weather the storms.
So nurture those relationships. They're not just nice to have, they're essential for your well-being. Huh? What else does the video suggest for boosting resilience?
It reminds us that taking care of our physical health is crucial for our mental and emotional well-being.
For sure.
Getting enough sleep, eating well, exercising these things might seem basic, but they can make a huge difference in how you cope with stress.
That's so true. When you're feeling physically run down, it's so much harder to be mentally and emotionally resilient.
Exactly. It's like trying to run a marathon without training or fueling your body properly. You're setting yourself up for failure.
So self-care isn't selfish. It's essential for resilience. What other gems of wisdom does the video offer on this topic?
Well, one really powerful strategy is to focus on your strengths.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in our weaknesses and things we're not good at,
Huh?
but that just drains our energy and undermines our confidence.
I love this point. We all have unique talents and abilities.
Yes.
And focusing on those can be so empowering.
Exactly. Take some time to reflect on what you're good at,
Okay.
what comes naturally to you, what you enjoy doing,
Uh-huh.
and then look for ways to use those strengths in your everyday life.
That's a great way to build confidence and a sense of accomplishment, which can boost your overall resilience. What other resilience-boosting tips does the video offer?
It encourages us to practice gratitude.
Okay.
This might seem simple,
Yeah.
but taking the time to appreciate the good things in your life can really shift your perspective,
Right.
especially when you're going through tough times.
It's like that saying, what you focus on expands.
Yes.
If you're constantly dwelling on the negative, you're just going to create more negativity.
Boy.
But if you focus on the things you're grateful for, you'll start to notice more good things.
And gratitude doesn't have to be some big, formal practice.
Okay.
It could be as simple as taking a few moments each day
Yeah.
to appreciate the beauty of nature, the kindness of a stranger, or the love of your family and friends.
Those small moments of gratitude can really add up and make a big difference in your overall outlook on life.
And finally, the video reminds us that building resilience is an ongoing process.
Okay.
It's not something you achieve overnight and then you're done. It's a lifelong journey of learning, growing, and adapting.
So it's like any other skill. It takes practice and dedication,
Yeah,
but the rewards are well worth the effort.
absolutely. The more resilient you become, the better equipped you'll be to navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life and to emerge from those challenges even stronger than before.
That's so inspiring. And it all ties back to critical thinking, doesn't it? It's not just about being smart. It's about developing those inner resources that allow us to think clearly, make wise decisions, and cope effectively with challenges even when things get tough.
Exactly. And this brings us to another crucial aspect of critical thinking that we've touched on before, but it's so important that it deserves its own spotlight, engaging with different perspectives.
Ah, yes. The art of navigating those differences of opinion, those clashes of worldviews, it can be so challenging, but the video really frames it as essential for critical thinking.
Right, absolutely. Because remember, we don't live in a vacuum.
Right.
We're constantly interacting with other people who have different viewpoints and experiences.
Yeah.
And those interactions can either enrich our understanding
Uh-huh.
or lead to conflict and division.
So how do we make sure those interactions are enriching rather than destructive?
The video offers some practical advice, right?
It does. And it starts by acknowledging that this can be really challenging,
Okay.
especially when we encounter viewpoints that we find offensive or upsetting.
That's so true. It's easy to get defensive or to shut down completely when someone challenges our deeply held beliefs. It can feel like a personal attack even if it's not intended that way.
Exactly. And that's why the video encourages us to approach these conversations with a mindset of curiosity and empathy.
Okay, we've talked about empathy before, but remind us again how it relates to critical thinking.
Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. And when we can empathize with someone, even if we disagree with them, it becomes easier to engage in a constructive dialogue.
Right.
We start to see them not as an adversary, but as a human being with their own unique experiences and perspectives.
So it's about finding that common ground, that shared humanity that connects us even across differences of opinion. Exactly. And one technique the video suggests for building empathy and strengthening your own critical thinking is steel manning.
Okay, we touched on steel manning earlier, but I'd love to hear more about how to actually do it. It's the opposite of straw manning, right?
Exactly. Straw manning is when you misrepresent or oversimplify someone's argument
Right.
in order to make it easier to attack.
Right.
Steel manning, on the other hand, is about trying to understand and articulate the strongest possible version of their argument, even if you ultimately disagree with it.
So it's about giving the other person the benefit of the doubt and really trying to see their perspective in the best possible light.
Exactly. And it requires you to engage with their argument on its own terms, not just dismiss it out of hand because you don't like their conclusion.
I love that. It's about having that intellectual humility to say, okay, let me try to understand where this person is coming from, even if I don't agree with them.
And what's fascinating is that steel manning not only helps you understand the other person's perspective better, but it also often strengthens your own argument by forcing you to engage with the most robust version of the opposing view.
That's so cool. It's like a mental workout that benefits both sides of the conversation. What other strategies does the video suggest for engaging with different perspectives?
Well, one simple but often overlooked strategy is to simply ask questions.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
But doesn't that make you seem less knowledgeable or confident?
Not at all. In fact, asking sincere questions shows that you're genuinely interested in learning from the other person and that you're not just trying to prove yourself right.
That makes sense. It shifts the dynamic of the conversation from a debate to a dialogue, from a battle of egos to a shared exploration of ideas. What kind of questions should we be asking?
Well, you can ask open-ended questions to encourage the other person to elaborate on their views. You can ask clarifying questions to make sure you understand their point. You can even ask challenging questions to probe their assumptions and test the strength of their argument.
So, questions can be a powerful tool for both understanding and engaging with different perspectives.
Exactly. And the key is to ask those questions in a respectful and non-confrontational way. Your goal should be to learn and to foster dialogue, not to win an argument or to make the other person feel stupid.
That's such an important reminder. It's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment and to forget that the goal is to have a productive conversation, not to score points or to prove our intellectual superiority.
And sometimes those conversations with people who hold different viewpoints can lead to a shift in our own thinking.
Mhm.
We might realize that we hadn't considered a certain angle or that there's more to the issue than we initially thought.
And that's a good thing, right? It means we're open to learning and growing. It means we're not so rigid in our thinking that we can't be swayed by new information or different perspectives.
Exactly. And that's what makes critical thinking so exciting. It's not about clinging to our beliefs. It's about constantly challenging them, refining them,
Yeah.
and evolving our thinking.
That's so inspiring. It's about embracing the journey of learning and growth, even if it takes us in unexpected directions.
And remember, this journey of engaging with different perspectives isn't just about those big, important conversations about politics or religion or social issues. It's also about those everyday interactions with your friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers.
That's a great point. It's about approaching every interaction as an opportunity to learn something new, to expand our understanding of the world, and to connect with others on a deeper level.
Exactly. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation with someone who has a different viewpoint, then you take a deep breath, practice those active listening skills, and try to see the world through their eyes.
You might be surprised at what you discover. You might learn something new, you might strengthen your own argument, you might even change your mind about something.
And that's okay. In fact, it's a sign of growth and intellectual humility.
Exactly. So embrace those moments of discomfort, those challenges to your existing beliefs, because that's where the real learning happens.
And that's where the magic of critical thinking truly unfolds.
This has been such an incredible conversation so far. I don't know about you, listener, but I'm feeling so inspired to put all of these critical thinking strategies into action.
Me too. And I'm excited to see what happens when we apply these principles, not just to information and arguments, but also to the way we make decisions and build resilience in our lives.
Speaking of decisions, that's the next stop on our critical thinking journey. The video dives deep into effective decision-making strategies, especially those that lead to success.
It's a fascinating section, and it ties in beautifully with everything we've been discussing so far about self-awareness, overcoming biases, and engaging with different perspectives.
Great, I'm ready to level up my decision-making game. Let's hear what the video has to say about it.
You know, it's amazing how this whole deep dive has connected so many different ideas.
I know, it's crazy, right?
We started with self-awareness, explored analyzing information, and even talked about resilience.
And now, as we wrap up with this video on critical thinking, it feels like all these threads are weaving together into something
It
bigger.
really does.
The video makes a point that really stuck with me, that even small changes in how we think can create a ripple effect in our lives.
Oh, totally.
I'm curious what resonated most with you from this deep dive.
Honestly, it's that connection between critical thinking and personal growth.
Cool.
Remember that oak tree metaphor for resilience?
Oh, yeah. I love that image.
Standing strong in the storm, bending but not breaking.
Yeah.
Well, the video subtly suggests that critical thinking is what builds those strong roots and that flexible trunk.
Interesting.
The better we are at analyzing information,
Uh-huh.
understanding our biases, engaging with different viewpoints,
Right.
the more equipped we are to handle whatever life throws at us.
So it's like critical thinking is the foundation for a more resilient, fulfilling life. Not just about being right,
Yeah.
but about navigating the world with more wisdom and grace.
Exactly. And remember how the video talked about mindfulness meditation as a tool for both emotional intelligence and resilience?
Yeah.
Well, mindfulness is also a key component of critical thinking.
Because it allows you to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, right?
Right.
So you can make more deliberate choices instead of reacting automatically.
Precisely. It's like cultivating that inner observer who can step back and say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm noticing I'm feeling really defensive right now.
Yeah.
Is that helpful? Or is there a more constructive way to respond to this situation?
That's such a game changer. And then there's the growth mindset,
Yes.
which the video links to both resilience and critical thinking.
Totally.
It's about believing you can always learn and grow,
Yeah.
even if you make mistakes or face setbacks.
That belief is huge,
I know, right?
because it allows you to embrace challenges as opportunities for development
Uh-huh.
rather than seeing them as threats or failures.
So critical thinking isn't about being perfect. It's about being open to learning and growth, even when it's uncomfortable.
And let's not forget the importance of social connections.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The video reminds us that we don't have to do this alone.
Right.
Having a supportive network of people you can talk to,
Yeah.
bounce ideas off of, and get different perspectives from is invaluable.
Those connections are so vital. It's like having a team of advisors and cheerleaders all rolled into one,
I know.
helping you navigate the complexities of life.
And speaking of navigating complexities, let's bring it back to the core of what this video is about.
Okay.
Honing those critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
It's something we can practice every single day no matter what we're doing.
So it's not just for academics or intellectuals, it's for everyone. How would you sum up the key takeaways for our listener based on this deep dive?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is that critical thinking is a journey,
Okay.
not a destination.
Uh-huh.
It's about constantly challenging yourself, questioning your assumptions, seeking out different perspectives, and being open to changing your mind.
It's about embracing curiosity as a guiding principle rather than clinging to certainty.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that even small changes in how we think can have a ripple effect on our lives, leading to better decisions, stronger relationships, and ultimately a greater sense of purpose and fulfillment.
What I love about this video is that it doesn't just tell you what to think.
Yeah.
It gives you the tools to think for yourself.
That's the true power of critical thinking, isn't it?
Totally.
It empowers you to become an independent thinker, to navigate the world with more awareness and intention, and to create a life that truly aligns with your values and aspirations.
So listener, as we wrap up this deep dive, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated most with you from this conversation?
Yeah, what are you to try out first?
And what are you curious to explore further on your own critical thinking journey?
Let us know. We're all in this together, constantly learning and growing.
Thanks for diving deep with us.